My name is Cherie Bassiouni. I'm an emeritus professor of law at DePaul University, and I've taught there for about 48 years and been very much involved with a lot of matters involving international criminal law. In particular, I was chairman of 5 international UN and national commission to investigate war crimes, and so I investigated the war crimes in the former Yugoslavia, 92 to 94. I also did Afghanistan, 203 to 205, Iraq after the invasion. I was chair of the Bahrain Independent Commission, and I was also chair of the United Nations Commission on Libya. And so over a span of more than 20 years, I've had the difficult opportunity of seeing war from close up, from the war being conducted, from what was happening, from trying to document the crimes and bringing people to prosecution and to trial. And what most people don't know is that the United Nations has a very big bureaucracy, and it's very difficult to be able to work within the UN system to document things. Also, there are all sorts of security restrictions, which I constantly violated by going in the field, because that's where things are happening. In the former Yugoslavia, conducted the first rape investigation in history. I interviewed personally 223 women who were victims of rape, and many of them repeatedly. And I think it's very difficult for anyone to imagine you're sitting in front of somebody who's been raped repeatedly for months, and the feeling of despondency, and you're sitting there and you're totally helpless, and you know, you're shouldering a little bit of that person's pain, but what else are you going to do? And in a sense, as I was chairman of the Security Council Commission, you know, you have these women looking at you and saying, where were you when this was happening? Where was the United Nations? And of course, this makes things very difficult. And then, you know, you see the realpolitik playing, and how states want things done and not. Another example is when I chaired the Libya Commission. For the first 6 months, I was the red carpet, and anything I wanted until Gaddafi got killed. And the moment Gaddafi got killed, you know, the whole international community had no interest in us continuing the work, because by then they had achieved their political purposes. So there's a lot of the politics going on behind the scenes. Most jurists, lawyers, activists, professors, they're interested in legal norms, but they don't really know how to go back to the facts, how to start from the bottom on up. How do you collect the evidence? You can have all the tribunals that you want, but if you don't collect the evidence at a time when the crimes occur, so that you can use this evidence in court, then it doesn't make a difference that you have all of these courts and these institutions. Second, you have to realize that there is always a realpolitik game. I mean, if it was not for the work that our commission did in producing the evidence that was brought to the Security Council, we would not have had a Yugoslavia tribunal. If we didn't have a Yugoslavia tribunal, we would never won the tribunal. And if we didn't have both, we probably wouldn't have had an international criminal court. And so the practicality of things behind it become very important. And what I've learned is that states manipulate the bureaucracy of the UN in order to get what they want. And they also manipulate the strings of the purse. If they don't want you to go in the field, they prevent you. For example, we have a UN commission to investigate war crimes in Syria. They've never moved out of their offices in Geneva. So they're collecting second-hand evidence. How useful will that be if you had a tribunal? I don't think it'd be very useful. But there's a purpose in that. I mean, if they would have been allowed to go and investigate, and they would have found, for example, the responsibility of Russia or Iran in some of these war crimes, do you think Russia or Iran would have allowed it? And the answer is no. And so these are some of the problems that are played behind the scenes. And the same is true with the crime of aggression. For a long number of years, we fought. And people like Ben and others who were there at the beginning, at the birth of things, fought to have crimes against peace and ultimately aggression after being established. Well, it was established, and I think it was a very important progress. And there is an important symbolism with the word aggression. It must be preserved. People are going to say, it was never enforced. The argument is very simple. Is the glass half full or half empty? If you want to say, yes, it maybe took us 60 years to get a definition of aggression. And yes, it is. As I myself said it, it's like Swiss cheese, it's full of holes. But you know what? It's better to have a piece of cheese with holes than not at all. And then maybe one day the court will have cases and the holes will be filled by the decisions of the court and we'll move on. So we should not be discouraged by that. On the other hand, we should also look for alternative strategies. How do we work things apart? For example, we have something called crimes against humanity and war crimes. And if you have people who have planned a war of aggression, and the war of aggression results in crimes against humanity, if you can't get them criminally for aggression, you may get them for crimes against humanity because they were the planners. It is no different than any ordinary crime. If you have somebody who is planning the killing of another person, but that person doesn't actually go out and do the killing, and you find the killer and you convict the killer, can't you go back to the one who originally planned it? Of course you can. So we have to start thinking that the various legal norms that we have can be used to achieve personal individual responsibility, because that's where the deterrent is. Now, we may not be able to always succeed. It's going to be a work in progress. But in the meantime, what we need to do is we need to reinforce public opinion. We need to make sure that people consider aggression as a violation of their sense of morality, their sense of ethics, their social values. And we have to build up the resistance against it. And this is a multifaceted approach. We have to be able to go to faith-based communities, to professional organizations, to the media, to the social media, to the educational system. We need to reinforce social values so that the immediate natural instinct of people to aggression, to the resort to war, to the resort to genocide, to the commission of crimes against humanity is no, because it goes against what we are as human beings.